Good afternoon, one and all. How are we all feeling on what is probably day 500 or something of lockdown, isolation, whatever it may be? How are we all coping? How's everybody getting on with a new way of life? Well, some of the West Ham footballers return back to training. Carlos Sanchez in particular has been displaying some of his fantastic ball skills. Parents across the country have been trying to keep their children entertained by helping out with a little bit of home baking. And the BBC, more than anybody, are feeling the budget cuts as they endeavour to record the next series of Doctor Who. Now, before we get into the subject matter at hand, which you can probably see from the title, the clickbaity title, what I'm wearing is a Hammers Chat. I think some call it a gilet. A gillet. A gillet. A gillette. I think they say gilet. But anyway, I knew when we ordered it, we ordered a load of gear at the same time, and we got two of these. But then the manufacturer we get it off got discontinued. Anyway, it's a lovely, lovely bit of kit. We're giving that away to one of our Hammers Chat Hammers Chat addict patrons. That's going to be given away, but we've got a lot of other prizes to give away as well to you lovely folk who keep watching our stuff. Mad folk who keep watching our stuff, quite frankly, particularly throughout all of this. So stay tuned to all the Hammers Chat platforms, and you'll find out a lot more. We've got a particularly good one as well coming up at the end of the week. We'll keep you posted on that. Right, now before I start, I've got to show you this from Canning Town Lane. Little picture. Myself and Gio. I quite like it. I think it's good. It's good stuff. It's reminded me. I think we're going to have to do a rerun of our FIFA match, England v Scotland, which was a dagger to the heart, quite frankly. So I will try and do you more proud than I did last time. But it was cheating of the highest order with Ryan Fredericks, who was like Lionel Messi. Anyway, we'll get back to that. Right, today's video was really sort of there's two things that prompted it. Number one was Tyrone Mings, he's been quite prolific on Twitter. And clearly a very intelligent guy, by the way. And as many of you know, watch this. Tyrone Mings is a player that I like a lot. And he's got leadership qualities, and he's very bright, very switched on. And you can see that in his Twitter feed. But I wasn't really aware of his Twitter feed until yesterday. I started scrolling down, and clearly you have a player who is quite concerned about returning back to football, but also quite switched on with every government announcement, with every additional bit of data that's brought out. And I've always thought that there was, as you know, a core group of players who are not going to want to play. Now, I don't want to put it on Mings that he's not going to play, but I do think the stuff that he's putting out there is indicative of the way a lot of players are going to be feeling. Now, the other thing that really prompted this was a comment on one of the videos. Yesterday's video, it's from Ian Taylor. Maybe pop it up there. Ian Taylor said, in no other line of work will the employee tell the employer that they're not going back to work. If my manager rings me tomorrow to tell me I'm required back to work, I have to go. Now, that's a really, really good point. And it's true. I'm pretty sure Ian has to go back to work when his manager tells him to. But this is where I think football is just going to reflect what's happening in society. But how many players are going to refuse to go back? We don't know. But there are going to be some that do. So yesterday we heard that the season was not going to be null and void. We heard that there was going to be another vote. And also the government gave some indication, which would be June the 1st, that they may be able to get some football back up and running. Now, for a long time, I thought that it was the broadcaster and the Premier League who were really trying to thrash this thing out, but there wasn't too much room for the individual. Now we're going to get into the realms of the individual because the PFA are going to become more involved. And the PFA's only remit is to look after their players, to look after their members. So the PFA can't deal with this with a broad stroke. It's not going to be like there's one opinion for everybody. So they're going to have to put something in place. And they are going to have to go forward to the Premier League and report what their members are saying. But it's not going to be cut and dried. It's not going to be black and white. It really isn't, because some are going to want to go, some are going to be reticent, and some just won't go. Some will just need some reassurance. But what happens to those players that don't go in, that refuse to go? Now, it would clearly be bad PR if what you did was you sacked those players or refused them wages, but never underestimate the Premier League's capacity to indulge in a bit of bad PR. I think we've seen plenty of it from plenty of clubs at the moment and through all this pandemic. I think a lot of them have got it very wrong. Some of them have got it very right. Chelsea and Watford in particular, our own West Ham have not done too badly either. But what Chelsea and Watford have done with their stadium, with the catering, with all of that stuff that West Ham couldn't do anyway, to be perfectly fair, because we don't have a stadium. But what they've done has been magnificent. But there have been a lot of clubs who have not done very well at all out of this. And when I look at it and I think, well, actually, they're going to be backed into a corner, because there was another article earlier on talking about how much money football clubs are going to lose. So I do respect the player may not want to go back and play, as I've discussed before. Absolutely. If somebody says, I want to stay at home. But do we think, is it right to stop paying them at that point? Are clubs going to sack players? This is really what's the one. Even if they don't sack them, are they going to hold back their wages? Because I think they're going to need to put something in place. So if a player just goes back to work, and bearing in mind we've got the wage deferrals coming up, they're going to have to pay that back very soon. If a player's ready to go back to work, they start training, whatever. Now the players are back at training small groups at the moment. If they're going to go back to work, fine, the wages stay the same. They can't get their win bonuses and stuff like that anyway. But the player that decides not to go back, they're going to have to make a decision on. And I think it's going to have to be quite a harsh one. Because if they turn around and say, we're not paying you at all, then realistically the player can void their registration, which would be the normal thing to do. And you'd then become a free agent. But if you've then become a free agent because you refuse to play football, who's then going to take you on? Do you then become attractive to another club? Well, you can't be. You wouldn't. If you were another club, you wouldn't want that player, would you? So do you put them on a reduced percentage of wages until you hope that things get better? Because the other thing that came out in the report from the Premier League, because they had this meeting yesterday, and this is quite key, was that even if people test positive, they will still continue to train. They will just isolate the people that have tested positive. Well, that's quite a bit of information to give to a player anyway. Because what you're saying to the player is, come into work, if you test positive, we'll send you back. Or come into work, if one of your teammates tests positive, we'll just get rid of them. Now, what that doesn't do is it doesn't cure the anxiety that's going to be in some of the players who are going to think, well, hold on a second, I might have caught it within that time. You know you're not necessarily going to be symptomatic for a little while. So this is what Germany have been doing. Germany have been saying, well, we carry on, we crack on. And I don't think we've seen, until we see the peak of, everyone's seen it, right? Everyone saw the pictures from the trains yesterday. Everyone's seen how busy the roads are. Everyone's confused. You're allowed to go to the park, but you're not allowed to go to the park. You're allowed to go to the beach, but you're allowed to go on holiday. You can mix with one person, but not two, and all that. Anyway, so you would expect with all this for there to be a bit of a spike. With a bit of a spike, you'd expect the infection rate to go up a little bit. And if that's going to happen, then more and more people are going to be catching this in and around, well, not just football clubs, anywhere and everywhere. Shops are trying to be careful. Everyone's trying to be careful, but people are still catching it. So I do think that the news is going to get a little bit worse in about 2 weeks. You're going to see it just going up, just climbing up a little bit. And at that point, players, I think some are going to refuse to go back and play football. So the Premier League can make all these plans. So BT and Sky and the broadcasters can make all these plans. But don't rule out well, I was going to say the PFA, but the LMA will do as well. The LMA and the PFA going in there and saying some of our members do not want to play. And the massive test of football will be what the clubs do then. It seems like they have three choices. And the three choices are for the football clubs to say, okay, we understand you're reticent. Don't worry about it. We'll deal with a weaker squad. We'll bring some players through from the youth team. We'll just try and get together, whatever it may be, a first team and a bench that can get through this. Don't worry, stay at home. You're still being paid. The second option will be, well, that's not great, but we understand. However, what's that? However, it's an apparition. What's my point? However, you can stay at home, but we're not going to be able to pay you in line with everybody else. That clearly is coming into work. That is clearly taking a risk, because it will be a risk. There will be a slight risk involved. The last one is, okay, you don't want to come in. We understand, but we can't pay you anymore because, by and large, you're a footballer who doesn't want to play football. Because if it looks like it's going to carry on, this will be the norm. When we go back, this will be the norm. The virus will continue to spread, and there's going to be some form of social distancing until everybody, either everybody's had it or they find a vaccine. This is going to be the way. So it's not like a footballer can turn around and say, well, hold on a second, I don't want to come in for a month, I'll come in next month. If they don't want to go in now, they ain't going to want to go in 3 or 4 months' time either. And that's really the issue. So at that point, I think the third option is for clubs to say, either we're not paying you at all, or you're sacked.